Hi everyone, my name is Moni,
And I'm Naveen from Before You Play.
and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Board Games, where we talk about a few games that we played recently.
Yes, we have 4 games today that we're going to be talking about. They're kind of in the shorter, lighter category, I would say. The last time we did one of these segments, it was heavier, bigger games. And so we want to do this segment a little bit more frequently. And these are the 4 that we chose today.
Yes, we actually had a heavier game on today's list, but we weren't able to play it enough times in order to make it to this episode. So it will have to wait another week.
One more. But first, we have a Dexter update.
Yeah.
Dexter is our 13-year-old miniature dachshund. If you've been following the channel recently, Dexter had an injury about a couple weeks ago, maybe about 6 weeks ago. And
In January.
January sometime. So it kind of caused some backlog for us in terms of content and being able to film or even play games. And so
He was actually placed on very strict rest for a month, pending the decision as to whether or not he would need surgery. And he is now out of that strict rest period and hasn't had any relapse of symptoms at all.
yeah, he's been doing
So-
pretty well. So thank you everyone for all the well wishes for him. He took well to his medication. We tried as best as we can, like to crate rest him or to
Yes.
room rest him, really is what we ended up doing. And he has strict no stair access. So we are trying our very best to make sure he does not go up and down the stairs.
It
And
is hard.
It's hard, yeah. So
That's it's like something he looks forward to or something. That's like not.
he likes his ears
wants
flopping
to-
up and down
in
the
the
stairs.
wind.
Yeah. So we're not putting any pressure on his back as much as possible. And no relapses, no issues so far. So everything is going in the right direction.
The only thing is he didn't have to lift a finger for an entire month.
Yeah.
So now we have a spoiled, rotten, demanding Dachshund. So
I know.
anybody out there who has a Dachshund in their household will probably understand what we're talking about.
Yeah. So now it's time for walks for him again. So we'll see how excited he's going to be about those.
All right, back to the
Back
electric
you go.
blanket. All right, so then before we get into the games, today's episode is kindly sponsored by Coon Games for their new second edition of Shadows, Heroes, and Monsters.
Yes, Shadows, Heroes, and Monsters is returning to Kickstarter for a new second edition. This is a competitive hybrid collectible card game for 2 to now 4 players, set in a fantasy world where players will need to hunt monsters, battle opponents, and earn the coveted Shadow Stones, which are the key to winning the game.
These heroes are brought together by a mysterious portal that connects different ages, technologies, items, magic, and species in a fierce battle for riches and glory. Each character has their own deck of spells, skills, and creatures, and as the game goes on, you'll earn gold and experience to upgrade your deck, unlock abilities, and of course, collect Shadow Stones. Every game plays out differently with a rotating mix of heroes, monsters, and cards.
Now, again, this game is coming to Kickstarter, so if you are interested in the campaign, there is a link in the description which you can check out. And thank you so much to QN Games for helping sponsor this segment. Okay, thank you so much. Now, we do have to mention the 4 games that we are going to talk about today were all sent to us by the respective publishers as review copies.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into the first game, shall we?
Yep.
This is the smallest box of today's episode,
Yeah.
and it is a card game called Castle Combo.
Castle Combo.
So this game is designed by 2 designers, Gregory Gerard
Gerard.
and Matthew Rosell, and published by Pandasaurus. Now, this is a game about creating combos.
In your castle.
As it says in your castle, as it
Yeah.
says on the box. But basically, it's a card game where you're just trying to purchase these character cards and place them in a 3x3 grid or tableau in your space. So it's a very fast game because each turn, you're basically just purchasing one of these cards and placing it in your tableau. And as soon as all players have filled their 3x3 grid, then that signals the end of the game. Now, the thing about the game is there are 2 different types of cards. There's a brown deck and a gray deck. And they're going to be laid out in a market with 3 cards face up in its respective row. And so on your turn, you can only purchase a card from the row where the messenger pawn is. So there's this little messenger pawn that's
This,
going to be
meeple. Yeah, big
that's going to
thing,
be
yeah.
walking back and forth between the 2 rows. And so you have to purchase from that row. You don't have a choice of all of them. When you purchase a card, you pay the cost in coins at the top left-hand corner, and then you place it into your tableau. If it's the first one, you can place it anywhere, but starting with your second card onwards, it has to be orthogonally adjacent to one that's already in your tableau. And each card has an immediate effect, which is going to depend on things that are in your tableau, which is why it's castle combo, because you're trying to find cards that sort of synergize with one another.
Yep.
So some cards might give you a discount for purchasing cards in the future. Some cards might give you keys, which are an important resource in the game, which not only score you points at the very end of the game, but also you can spend a key once per turn before purchasing a card in order to either move the messenger pawn to the other row.
Yeah, so if you don't like, if the messenger pawn's in the brown row and you really want something that you see in the gray row, you can spend one of those keys, move the messenger pawn, and then actually draft one of those cards.
Yes, or you can use the key to flush the row. So if you just don't like your options in that row, then you can flush it. But you can only spend one key per turn.
Right.
Keeping in mind, though, that keys are worth 1 point each at the end of the
So
game.
you're essentially spending a point
So
to
you're
do
spending
something.
a point, yes, exactly. In addition, each card has an end game scoring criteria at the very bottom, which also depends on what cards are in your grid.
Yeah, it could be like score this card if you have no blue shields anywhere in your complete tableau.
Right.
Or for every red shield you have, you score 1 point. So
Yes, or you'll score points if this card is in this column.
Yep.
So there's also some positional criteria as well. In addition, at the end of the game, your coins are going to be worth nothing
yeah.
essentially. They're a tiebreaker, but you really want to get these cards that have these coin purses on them.
it's like a coin sack. Yeah.
Because at the end of the game, you can basically put your coins on those cards, and now they're actually worth points. So that's essentially it. If you can't pay for a card, then you can always take a card and turn it face down, and it'll gain you, I believe, 6 coins and 2
Two keys, yeah.
So you must always take a card. You don't have the option of not taking one.
Yeah, so it's basically played over 9 rounds, right? Because you're doing a 3x3 grid, so you're going to draft one thing, then it just goes on to the next player. In terms of play length, it says 25 minutes on the box, and that's about right.
Yeah, it's very fast.
Very fast,
It's a
yeah.
very quick game.
You just make a decision, put it in your tableau, and then if it has an instant thing, then you do the instant thing. Then it just moves on to the next player. There's a whole variety of different types of cards, and so really just trying to find the name is exactly perfect. You're just trying to find the right combo of cards that can work with what you have at any given particular time. Sometimes maybe you'll set something up and it's like no red flags in this particular, or no red shields in this particular area, but you have a red shield in every single row, and you're like, oh gosh, this card is like not useful for me anymore. But the benefit by putting a red shield here is going to actually be more favorable because maybe I can save those coins at the end. So there's a bunch of different like things that you're just going to try to score as best as possible. And then in the end, you're just going to see where kind of your chips fall.
Yeah, it's very simple. I really like the game for what it is. Like, it does exactly what it intends to do. It fits that like beautiful 20-minute space, but it's thinky enough in those 20 minutes and engaging enough, right?
Yeah, it's a nice little filler. Like don't even want to call it like a gateway game. Like it's
fast
gateway
game.
friendly,
Yeah,
but
it's just a
like
short game.
it's something that like even you and I enjoyed
Yeah,
playing
you could
our game.
take this anywhere. We could probably play with your
My
parents.
family, yeah.
It's really charming. The art on the cards is really kind of funny.
Silly, yeah.
Really silly. And the components are really good quality. So that messenger piece that just walks back and forth, that's literally the only job of that piece. It's nice and chunky.
Very chunky.
And I just think they did a really good job with the production of
Nice.
the game.
Yeah, I have not played it on BGA. Now you said you have a couple times. Now
Yes.
the implementation, I'm assuming, is good.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's a simple game, so I imagine it was. I guess there are a lot of cards. There
Saves
are
you the
like
shuffling.
70 or something unique cards.
78, I
So
think, yeah.
it's all on there, and you can still see other players' tableaux. So it plays really well on BGA.
Yeah, for me, BGA, I like playing lighter games on there. I don't like to play those long, kind of drawn out ones. So this is definitely one that I will be checking out.
I like the long ones.
I know. Yeah, you do. Yeah. So anyway, that is Castle Combo. Very light, very simple, but also still fun. Okay, the next game we want to talk about, we've had for a little while on our review shelf, and so we are glad that we finally got to play it.
Yes.
This is one called Junk Drawer. This is designed by Dave Smith and published by 25th Century. They are also in kind of the field of lighter games in terms of production. This one takes about 20 minutes, and it's a polyomino tile placement kind of game.
Yeah,
And
you're
you're
placing items.
Yeah, and you're
into your
trying
junk
to
drawer.
organize your junk drawer. You're
Yes,
trying to make it as
that's true.
efficient as possible so you can score some points.
Yes, but it is not that simple. So Naveen is right. This sat on our review shelf for a long time. For some reason, I don't know. I wasn't really
She wasn't drawn to it. I was
but
very much so drawn to
Naveen,
it.
Every time we would pull a game off the shelf, he's like, "What about Junk Drawer?"
It says 20 minutes.
What about
you
Junk
wanna
Drawer?
play it? Yeah.
So my
Polyomino?
sister came over and we finally played it. So we did play this with other people. And the way that the game works is each player has their own junk drawer. And your junk drawer is divided into 4 separate compartments that are color-coded. And in the middle of the table, there is a replica of that drawer that you have to place these goal cards on, because those are going to be the rules that determine how you score in each compartment of your junk drawer. And these rules might be something like score
Points for areas on the perimeter of your junk drawer that are scoring or that are
Yes.
covered up.
or points for completely covered squares in each row or something like that.
Or have like one of each color in at least every single column.
Yes, stuff like that. So there are different ways that you'll score for putting your items in your drawers. But the way that the game works is there is a deck of item cards, and these items are going to be stuff like a watch or,
Maybe like loose keys, a corkscrew, a phone charger.
yes, things that you would, I guess, commonly find in one's junk
They're
drawer.
definitely there.
And so each round, we're going to draw 4 of these cards and place them in a row face down. And one at a time, we're going to reveal one of these cards, and everybody has their own set of these polyomino tiles that match these items. And so, for example, if we flip over the phone charger, everybody has to find their phone charger polyomino tile and place it in one of the 4 compartments of their junk drawer. Now, the 4 cards that we have in a row must be placed in separate compartments. So, and they're only going to be revealed one at a time.
Yeah,
you won't
can't-
know.
You can't plan ahead. You can't
Right.
see all 4 that have to be placed in the round. You just see one card at a time.
Yes.
And so therein lies kind of the issue with the game. So as you're trying to be mindful of the 4 different scoring parameters for all the 4 different quadrants, you're going to start deviating from your opponents where it's like, okay, I put that phone charger in there. And then now the watch, the watch is kind of perfect for me here because I've kind of built it up this way. But
Right.
that's would have been really actually good if I put it over there. But I've already used that kind of that square in this particular round. So
Yes.
you're going to find yourself kind of just trying to figure out the best way to kind of keep your head afloat.
Yeah, and you can't foresee what shapes are coming up next because of that, because it's hidden.
And they are kind of
And
awkward shaped.
These compartments are not very big, you
No.
know. They're small sections of your drawer.
I think it's like what is it, like a 6x6 or something like that?
Yeah,
Maybe
something
smaller.
like that. And so the real problem is if at any time you need to place an item, because all of these items have to be fully enclosed within their compartment, and you can't overlap tiles. So it's like standard polyomino tile placement. But if ever you cannot place an item, then that triggers the end of the game
Yeah.
for everyone.
He's
so
finished that
one
turn.
player
Yeah.
was not able, if one player messed it up for everybody, it ends the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go into final scoring, and you score based off of the goals that were pre-chosen, I guess, during setup.
Yeah, a very light game,
Mm-hmm.
super light, but also just thinky enough.
It was hard.
It is
It's
hard,
really
yeah.
hard.
Because at first, like you're like, I have all this space, and okay, I just got to be mindful of this one thing. But
Yeah.
the fact that you do not get to see the 4 cards that are laid out ahead of time, so you're not thinking like, okay, this one will go in the red area, this will go in the blue, this will go in the yellow. The fact that you have to make a decision the second you see a card, and then you have to live by that decision for the rest of the game, because
rest
you're
of
like,
your life.
that would have been perfect had I known that next card was not gonna show up.
Right,
you know?
right.
Because you're constantly trying to make sure that you don't mess up your scoring parameters. Because sometimes if you put the wrong thing in the wrong place, you'll just ruin it for the rest of the game for you.
Yeah.
Not in like a super punishing way, because obviously it's really, really light and very
It's
short.
very light, yeah, very
Yeah,
short.
but,
the goals come in easy, medium, and hard. So you can also sort of cater the experience around the table based off of what types of goals you put on the board.
Yeah, it says
So-
14 and up, and I'm pretty sure that is just for toy testing reasons,
Or-
because I think this one can play very well for kids as well.
Yeah, probably. The only thing to keep in mind is the scoring aspect. So they have to understand like exactly how things are scoring
Yeah.
and how to count that and keep that in mind,
Yeah.
because it's fairly crunchy in terms of the puzzle aspect. It's just a big puzzle. Like that's what the game is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a puzzle. And so I actually felt like it was crunchier than I was expecting it to be.
Yep, same.
It's crunchier than what it looks
Like,
you know.
for sure.
This doesn't really tell you what kind of experience you're going to have with the game.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
So-
I was having fun with it. Your sister, who's not really a gamer, I think she enjoyed it.
I think so too. I think she was stressed out a little bit.
I think she was like very like she was really hung up on the rule of like, I can't put it in the same drawer. It's like that therein lies the problem
Yeah.
in the game.
I mean,
That's-
there's only a
hence
couple
the
of
game.
rules in the game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's one of them.
Yeah, so you could hear her saying like, "Oh gosh, I wish I could place it in the blue, but
Yeah.
I already previously placed it there." So,
Right.
Yeah, so that is junk drawer.
All right, moving on to the next game. We have a deduction game this time,
Mm-hmm.
and it is called Finding Atlantis.
Yes.
A thrilling deduction game.
Thrilling.
This is designed by Andreas Wild and published by Synapses Games.
Mm-hmm.
And in this game, you are doing exactly what it says. You're trying to find Atlantis using your submarine, and your board.
Yep.
So there's a bit of a deduction puzzle to it where each player is basically trying to explore their own board and look for the different spaces that give you clues as to where Atlantis is. And in this game, Atlantis is represented by four
spaces,
4 triangles on the spaces.
Yeah, so you're going to have a grid, and then you're going to shield your grid off from your opponents because you're all looking for the exact same thing. And the game is actually scenario-based, and so Atlantis is somewhere in that grid.
Yes.
And so you're going to have to spend action cards and also the use of an app to help you navigate around, try to discover where exactly Atlantis is,
Right.
and then eventually solve kind of all 4 spaces as to where Atlantis is. The first person to do that wins the game.
Yes. Now, Naveen sort of briefly touched upon it, but this game is run using an app.
Exclusively.
I don't believe there's any way to play it other than using this app.
Yeah.
And so the way that the actual gameplay occurs is each player has their own deck of action cards. We have identical decks. And if you want, you can also play with the captain roles who sort of give you an asymmetric ability.
Yeah, gives every player one asymmetric ability. You represent this captain of the ship, and so you might have something that differs from another player.
Yes, and each player has their own sort of starting space on their boards. You're also sort of trying to keep track of where the other players are because this game can play, I believe, up to 1 to 4 players, but we've only played it at 2, just so you know. But the way that the turn structure works is on your turn, you can take 2 actions, and each action is represented by an action card. And so when taking an action, you have to actually scan it using that app by holding it just above the app, using your front-facing camera, which was interesting.
It's a little different, yeah.
Yeah, which we didn't realize, I guess.
Yeah.
And then it knows which action you're taking, and you sort of point the direction that you're trying to go in, because some of these actions are like move forward secretly 2 spaces or something, or scan the 2 adjacent spaces on opposite sides of your submarine for traces of civilization. And the app will tell you whether you found traces of civilization, or sometimes these mountain ranges, which also give you some clues as to whether or not you're close to finding Atlantis or finding an artifact, which are also these items that you can pick up that help you along the way. But in order to pick them up, you have to play a specific action card, which is the exploration card. And once you've played all of your cards, or if ever you just want to pick up your deck, because every time you take an action, you have to discard these
It's
cards.
out of your hand, yeah.
Then you can surface, and that's the only way for you to pick up your cards again. But surfacing tells everybody where you are. So,
All a Captain Sonar, kind of, if
Yeah.
you've ever played that game where
Kinda
it's
like
like,
Captain
okay,
Sonar.
surfacing, I'm in this quadrant, so now everybody knows. Because there are some modes in the game where you can drop mines and kind of hinder your opponents.
yes.
So that is an optional variant that you can play with, but there are a couple cards that if you are playing with the more aggressive style of play, then you add to your deck.
Yes, there's no health or anything like that. Like,
No.
if you run into a mine, then the penalty is you must give the player who owns the mine one of your artifact cards. So that's sort of the take that element there. There are also sea monsters that you can run into depending on the mode of play. But that is pretty much the game. You just keep on taking turns, taking 2 actions each until somebody has located all 4 spaces of Atlantis.
Now, when playing the game, it requires you, especially your first time, it requires you to use the app tutorial because the rulebook does not just lay out all the rules for you. I think they want you to get used to using the app. But for me, that was not the most enjoyable way to kind of get into the game because the app implementation is a little bit... I don't know. It's challenging.
Yeah.
There's sometimes like you have questions like mid app, like, and you're like, is that going to get answered in a
Right.
second? Oh, did they ever
Yes.
answer that? So then
Right.
how do I go and search that in the rulebook? Oh, I don't even know where to look. So it got a little bit kind of messy for us.
The tutorial was not the best, I will say, in that app. And I know that there are people who are already sort of on the fence about
Apps.
whether or not, apps should be in board games.
Yeah.
And up until this point, I don't think we've ever had a bad experience with an app.
For the most part, they're pretty good.
I think the only time ever was when we used to play the early version of Root, and
yes,
you couldn't
go back.
go back.
Yeah, and then also sometimes we've done like content for like prototypes, and they're still working on the
Yeah,
app.
but
and
they're
there's
not
like,
finished.
Yeah, back. Typically, it's a no back button issue. That's always a problem for us.
Yes, it's always the problem.
But this game, there's something about the slowdown of the app because every time you want to take an action in the game, you have to scan a card.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of like perfectly line it up.
Right.
And you're actually using the front-facing camera, so you kind of hold the phone here, and then you put the card here, and you have
Yeah.
to make sure it's in the right angle because there are these arrows on the cards, which I think is what the app kind of picks up.
Right.
And that dictates what the action you're taking
And
is.
that was what my point was going to be, that
Yeah.
I don't think we've run into an issue with apps before until now.
Yeah.
Because the rule book doesn't really tell you, like, this is how you should be using the app. And I'm not used to playing games with a scanning ability that uses a front-facing camera.
Yeah.
And when you go to take actions, like, nothing pops up that says, like, okay, scan the card now. Like, it just, like, you take the action and then it just sort of waits. So you don't see anything change.
Yeah,
And
so-
for a long time, we
Yeah.
were trying to figure out how to just scan a card.
Like most apps, you say, I'm going to go into the scan menu
Yeah.
and then scan. But
Yeah.
this one, it's just like while you're in like the waiting menu, it's just ready to scan at any point. And so we see these like dots on the screen, and I'm like, how do I get to scanning?
Yes.
And it took us all like 15 minutes just to be like, oh, just do this. And then
Yeah, because
like,
I finally opened the rule book and
yeah.
saw like a little image of them holding the
doing
card.
that,
And I
yeah.
thought, wait, is it like this? Do you just hold it like that? So eventually we got it to scan.
Yeah.
So that was our difficulty just getting to play the game.
it just soured the experience going into it. Yeah.
But when we did finally play the game, so this is the actual gameplay now, it was just sort of okay. Like, we love deduction games. So I guess it's another bias that we have.
It's why we wanted to play it.
Yes.
That's why I was so strongly wanted to
We've
play it.
played a lot of deduction games. So I don't know if our bar is a little bit higher just because we've played
Probably.
so many of them.
Yeah.
But just even the puzzle of the game itself was it was just okay. Like,
Yeah, it's like, oh, go here, search. Oh, signs of life. Okay, now explore.
yeah.
Oh, good, I found one piece of Atlantis.
Right.
That's lucky, you know?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also like the experience around the table, like there's no player interaction. Like
Yeah.
it sort of hints to you that you should be keeping track of where your opponents are, but it didn't really seem like I needed to. You know what I mean?
It's like if I have this really
Because-
nice artifact I'd hate to give you, but
Like maybe,
yeah.
or maybe if I know that you're finding traces of Atlantis,
Yeah.
and I know sort of where you are, then
Then
that might give me
clue
hints
you
as
into
to
just
where to
hightail
go.
it over towards me. Yeah.
But it's just such a small puzzle space that I don't know. Like
Yeah.
the turns were very silent. It was like, I'll scan my card, I'll scan another card, and then I'll pass you the phone. And that's pretty much the game experience.
Yeah, it feels like a solo experience. Now, it does say it plays 1 to 4 players. I'm not exactly sure how the solo game works, but we've only played it at 2, so that's pretty much as from that experience that we can talk about.
Yes, but again, it does play up to 4. I don't know if the experience is going to change by that much, adding more players. So that was just our experience with the game. Definitely not for us, I
Yeah.
would say.
No.
I had really high hopes for it initially because it sounded really cool, but unfortunately, this one really fell flat.
Yeah, I think we are okay with apps in games.
Yeah, I have no problem with
Yeah,
them.
many games, many deduction games. The app is absolutely critical.
Yeah, right.
And so for this one, it just for both of us,
just
I
didn't
think we
work.
both agreed at the end of it that just wasn't a fan. So anyway, that is Finding Atlantis. Okay, last game. Now, this is one that we picked up just shortly after Gen Con 2024. This was actually on our Gen Con, one of the most anticipated games. Finally got to play it after a while. Monique actually played it at Gen Con.
Yes.
It is called Middle Ages. This one is designed by Marc Andre, who is the designer of Splendor, which is still a game that I really, really enjoy. And this is one that is a re-implementation of a game called Majesty for the Realm.
Yes.
I always want to say Majesty of the Realm. It's Majesty for the Realm, which
But
I
this
had never
one
played.
is published by Studio H.
Studio H,
I don't
yeah.
know who published the previous one, but neither of us have played that one.
Don't
By the
know.
way.
Yeah. This one plays 2 to 5 players, and it says in roughly about 30 minutes, and definitely at the 2-player count, that is extremely accurate.
Yeah, I mean, if it's more than 30 minutes, it's probably not by much because the turns are pretty
Snappy,
swift.
yeah.
Now, what you're doing in this game is everybody has their own fiefdom,
Yep.
I believe, and we are just drafting estate tiles into our estates. Now, in this game, there are a total of 8 different estates, and so your player board sort of organizes them by type.
Yeah, so you can have like churches, the ramparts,
Yes.
the barracks, the field,
The mills.
yes. Yeah.
And so on your turn, there's going to be 4 rows of tiles. And each row is going to have, I believe it's the number of players plus 1 tile available. And so at the start of the game, we're going to start by placing out our pawns on a tile to sort of reserve it. And then turn goes from left to right, because whenever you lay out tiles, you have to lay them out in ascending numerical order. I assume because the value of the tile increases, just like sort of in like
A la,
games like
King Domino? Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so if I'm the leftmost player on the tile, then it's going to be my turn first. first, I start by placing my pawn on a new tile that's in the next row.
Yeah.
So I'm reserving the tile that I take in the next round first. And then I place my estate tile that I had reserved into my fiefdom. And they're going to be stacked according to type. Now, whenever you place an estate into your play area, you're first going to activate their immediate effect, and this is going to be different depending on the estate. So some effects just give you stuff, like the field gives you 1 coin for each farmer symbol.
Which are located on all sorts of different tiles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of them are attacky, such as the barracks, which attacks all players around the table who have fewer ramparts than you have barracks. So these are 2 different types of estates.
Yeah, so there's 8 different estates, 8 different types of tiles. So you want to have the most ramparts compared to other people's barracks. So anytime somebody drafts a barracks, you're going to assess everybody else around the table. And if you have less rampart tiles than their barracks tiles, then they are going to destroy one of your buildings that you've already previously built.
Yes.
And you have to pay 2 coins to them.
Coins.
Yeah, so it can be pretty nasty at the right time.
There is an estate that allows you to rebuild tiles from your cemetery. So it's not horrible. I mean, these tiles aren't, it's not like every round that this is going to happen. It's just something that you have to consider. There are mill tiles that do something similar but require other people to pay you, I believe, 1 coin if they have fewer mills than you do.
Yeah, and then going back to which tile gets destroyed in your fiefdom or in your estates, it is the tile that you have the estate, which is one of the 8 columns, that you have the most amount of tiles in.
Yes.
So you can't just run away with one thing.
Right.
People will kind of drag you back. The game is pretty simple. It's very simple, actually, because there is no costs associated with drafting these tiles. Sometimes in games you have to manage your money where it's like, if I want that tile, I would love it, but I don't have enough coins to do it.
You don't have to pay. In fact, these tiles gain you money because after you activate the effect of the estate, you always gain income. And each estate gives you different combinations of income. So some estates might give you 1 coin for every field and something. I think that one's just fields, huh?
Yeah, it's like one.
I don't remember the combination.
It's like 1 coin for every house symbol that you see along inside your entire fiefdom.
And actually, income is 2 coins. For example, the market gains you 2 coins for every mill and market tile that's in your fiefdom. So you're basically trying to see what estates am I collecting a lot of and try to really maximize the amount of coins that you're getting each turn because at the end of the game, your score is just how many coins you have.
That's all it is.
So
you're trying to get the most amount of money. Now, the only thing is you do have to diversify in the game because you are penalized for not building every single type of estate. For each estate type at the end of the game that you have not built in your entire fiefdom, you actually lose 10 coins, which can be quite punitive.
So that's another thing that you're trying to consider. You want to make sure that you have at least 1 of each type, or you're weighing the cost of those 10 coins. And 4 times throughout the game, there's also an event that occurs that affects everyone. And that's going to change from game to game because there's a deck of cards, and you sort of just randomly decide that. But that's essentially it. The gameplay is actually quite simple, but the decision making is sort of where everything falls into place because it does play up to 5 players. And I've played it at several player counts. I think you've played it
2 and 3.
2 and 3.
2 and 3, yeah.
Yeah, so I played it at 5 because this is also on BGA. And the higher the player count, obviously the more I want to say a little chaotic, but also
Like the board game stress.
the board game stress, yes,
Yeah,
because
the
you're
good
really
stress, yeah.
keeping track of, well, how many mills does this person do? All these people have, and your decisions are just a lot more impactful.
Yeah, you don't want to go 5th. When you see it, like in a 5, because in a 2-player game, right? There's 3 tiles laid out. It's like, well, I guess I go second. I get 1 choice. I get to choose 1 of 2 tiles. Versus in a 5-player game, it's like I'm probably gonna be getting the last bottom 2 tiles here. So,
But there's also an effect in the game that allows you to block off a tile.
Yep.
So that can be really painful in a 2-player game.
Yes, okay, that part is
You've been shut out.
Yeah, I have
from
been shut out.
All your
Fulfilling
estates.
Yes. Monique destroyed one of my pieces and then didn't allow me to get it back.
So 2 players can be meaner, I would say. It's easier to hide in higher player counts. But that's essentially the game. It's actually quite simple, and it is very fast.
Yeah, component quality of this game is excellent. Everything in it is very, very nice. Very good quality of it. So A+ on that. In terms of did it meet my expectations, I think playing it at the 2 and 3 player game, I didn't get the full experience.
Oh.
I do want to play it at 4 and 5. I think I want to play it at 4 That sounds about more right up my alley. 5-player games sometimes for me can get a little draggy.
How did you enjoy the mechanics?
I do like the mechanics. I do wish that there was some cost associated with taking certain actions.
But you're already having to pay other players.
I know, but like
You want it to be meaner?
I guess it's just the cost and the time. Like sometimes, like you'll look at the next row and you'll be like, because all the tiles are laid out from A to Z, like from the start to finish for a particular round. You do kind of want us to be like, okay, by the time the 4th turn comes around, I definitely want to go first. So how do I position myself on the 3rd section to be in the first spot? So then sometimes you have to kind of map out a plan. And then, of course, that's not going to happen because other people see that and they also want those tiles.
Right.
But yeah, I enjoyed it, but it's not like a stellar game for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I'm sort of in that boat. The more I play it, the more I enjoy it. I will say the very first time I played it, I don't know if I just didn't grasp the rules enough, but I was like, what does this estate do? There are 8 estates. And like every
The iconography is very good.
The iconography is
It's actually very good.
But I didn't grasp the concept of the effect and the income for some reason. It's so simple. It's so simple. But I mean, the entire time, what the game really is you're just sort of trying to maximize your income every turn while also trying to make sure you have one of every tile and trying to guard against attacks. Like that's what the game feels like to me.
There's also like a mid-game scoring and an end-game scoring. There's like objectives that you...
the events.
The events,
There's the 4 events.
Yeah, and
but
you are
can
aware of
see
those.
them in advance. You know what they are. It's not a surprise. So you can sort of plan for them as well. I do agree that this version of the game is gorgeous.
Very
the
nice.
art is really nice, and the component quality is really nice. Like the way that the estate tiles fit
They all
on
slot,
the tableau.
and they're all
is
different
like,
cut.
It's like a puzzle, but they all sort of create a larger picture.
Very
it's
nice,
really
yeah.
nice. But like I said, we had not played the previous version of the game, so we don't know what the differences are between them. But I like this game for the fact that it plays well at higher player counts. I
Yeah.
feel like that's really difficult to do.
On a short
But
game, yeah.
like Naveen was mentioning, I think that's where it shines more. I think you want to play it at higher player counts. And other than that, I liked the game. Didn't love it, but I
Okay.
liked it a lot.
And you said the BGA implementation also
great.
good? Yeah?
Yeah, you
Okay,
just-
perfect.
you click
Another one
in
I have
the
not
tile.
played,
Yeah.
on BGA, but I will get in the game soon. Yeah. Well, there you have it. That is Middle Ages.
Well, there you have it. Those were 4 random games
Random,
that
yeah.
we played recently. Like I was mentioning, we have a couple more episodes of this planned in the coming weeks, and so we are going to be talking about some heavier games next time. Hopefully,
That's the goal,
that
yeah.
we weren't able to prepare in time for today. Otherwise, please let us know what you've been playing. I know that when I discussed a bit of anime last time, we had some feedback from other viewers
People,
who
yeah.
also watch anime, and I just want to give an update that I finally finished Free Run, and it was amazing.
She really enjoyed that one.
Like amazing.
You
One
said
of
a
my
slow
favorite.
burn, though, right?
Yeah, it was tough sort of to get through. If anybody has started Free Run, it's the anime about, it's a fantasy anime about an elf who sort of continues her life after her adventuring party.
After her crew basically
Yes.
passes away, she is
Some of them.
more eternal than everybody else.
Right. She's
Yeah.
a really long life,
Yeah.
but it starts off really slow and then it just like picks up one day and it just does not sort of stop.
Mm-hmm.
So amazing. And I'm also finally finishing Demon Slayer.
Yes.
That's like the really, really popular
You're
anime
enjoying that
of all
one,
time.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, also amazing. So what's your update?
Well, I don't really watch anime too much, but I did finish the first season of Ozark. If you have not seen that show and you are into adult
games.
games now, adult-esque kind of themes in
Okay.
games, or games. What am I saying?
What are you saying?
Games,
This is not a family show.
board games. No, it is
Okay.
TV show is what it is. Sorry,
Okay, it says adult TV.
Adult TV shows. Do not watch it with your kids.
Okay.
I highly recommend it. All you need to do, you'll know if you enjoy the show in the first 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
After my cousin showed it to me in the first 15 minutes, I was like, all right, I'm watching this.
Nice.
I'm sold. Yeah. So
That
yeah,
sounds a
that
lot.
is Ozark. That is on Netflix. If you are interested in checking that one out.
Cool. Otherwise, let us know what you've been watching, I guess, and what you've been playing, because we always love to hear from all of you. Thank you again to Coon Games for sponsoring this episode.
thanks.
And thank you again for all of the well wishes for Dexter, because
Yeah,
it
that's
really
good.
helped. It helped with the mental health.
Mentally, yeah.
Yeah, mentally. A lot of people were telling us stories that they have about about their dogs
And how it didn't go in the right direction.
or
yeah.
sometimes it did, or just
Yeah.
like what they had to go through to get to that point. And it was really reassuring knowing that other people also knew that struggle.
Yeah,
'Cause it was
yeah.
a very, very specific struggle.
We had to be helicopter over him.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
It was tough for a couple weeks there. But yeah,
Yes.
he's doing great,
Yeah.
and so we'll talk about him again on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.